Very good. Okay, welcome everybody. And just want to kick off just with a few intro slides as we let some other people join. I picked up this article. Found this article yesterday that as much as we salute the Washington State University Extension Service and promise to follow and pledge to follow all of their precepts with a research-based design, I couldn't resist tapping into the Royal Horticultural Society and seeing what they had to say. And of course, this being the day that the book Spare is available from Prince Harry, right? It seemed a very appropriate day to kind of go Brit, right? With these. Anyway, these are kind of fun 9 big trends that they predict here for 2023. One, they're talking about getting into houseplants and exotic houseplants. And the theme that they were pushing on for the UK is that because energy costs are so expensive there, folks are turning down their thermostats. And so they're saying that cooler, thriving houseplants will do better in 2023. And so they think this is going to be a big trend. Second thing, regenerative gardening. And of course, this is what they would talk about. This is, trust the English to come up with a big word on this thing here. They're talking about, I didn't realize this, is that peat-based compost will be banned in the UK starting next year. So this actually speaks to, the trends we've been talking about with Quire and with other alternatives to peat. So this is interesting that this is, I was not aware that the UK had taken such strong steps to actually ban peat as a garden amendment. Third thing is that apps, gardening goes tech. And so the idea of it using a lot of planning, virtual courses at planning and planting. So that's got a kind of cool thing. Herb gardens, obviously big. And of course, they've always been big here. But I mean, look at the searches into the Horticulture Society's website up 600% this past fall compared to 2021. Climate resilient gardens. Now, this really speaks to the fact that everyone's recognizing that, is that the drought and the heat that the UK experienced extremely last summer is something we all should be thinking about. And so they're looking for how to drought proof and climate proof your landscape. And this speaks to changing lawns. And that, Val, it goes back to some of the eco lawns that we've talked about in some of our past meetings here. They talk here about letting borders grow wild to attract pollinators. And they talked about tapestry lawns. Interesting concept here, low-lying, intertwining, flowering plants. And it, of course, the picture here says it all. What a tremendous landscape you've achieved here. And then green landscaping. So the idea of using hardscape in various contexts here. They talked about here the hedges. I think that's a gosh, I forget I had that plant, that pink flowering plant. Gosh, I forget what it was, but they talked about that as a big hedge attraction that's going to go on as a trend here. And then dried flowers. Interesting at this is that they would actually pick this as a trend that they wanted to achieve here. But this is something that they're talking about here as a big deal for this year. And then finally, embracing nature's unloved. And so this is actually, hey, let's get into slugs. Let's get into parasitic wasps. Let's get into, let's even bring in aphids to our gardens, right? So that they can provide more food, right? For other more desirable. So it's an interesting comment that they had, interesting here that this is and I appreciate the fact that these are a lot of things we talk about, right, as master gardeners, and that they've kind of entered the zeitgeist of popular gardening, at least in the UK, where they are, of course, an educated bunch. So I invite you to read more. This article is, I just picked it up on it, just on a search search. Val, go ahead, please.
I was just going to mention the big reason for banning peat is that its mining releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and we're trying not to be doing that with our healthy soil principles and the use of peat as a mulch.
Most certainly. It takes 1,000 years to create that stuff, and just digging this stuff up, isn't doing the planet any good at all. So Anyway, fun trends, that we think about. Hey, other trends as you think about 2023, reminder that this is our 50th anniversary of the WSU Master Gardener program, and that there's opportunities that the state foundation is offering to get your foundation wear, so get your clothing on. So if you didn't get what you wanted for Christmas, this is your opportunity, right, to go ahead and buy yourself that special Christmas WSU Master Gardener outerwear. Or our own, and Shar Hood and her company has all kinds of gear that can be procured. So there's no excuse, right, for us not being properly wardrobed, right, as we entered 2023 for all of our Master Gardener activities. Okay, with that, let's kick it off and jump into the program here today. I'm going to go through, as we usually do, the to-dos, the gardening to-dos from the OSU calendar. Lots of announcements and updates we'll be talking about. We'll also be talking about our 2023 budget, our 2023 programs. And then Dan Barlin has joined us here today. He's up there in Hoquiam, and you're in your neighborhood up to the north here. And he's going to talk to us about Coastal Raptors, an organization that Eva has introduced us to, and I'm eager to learn more. And so as we begin, just with calendars. So birthday calendars here, as I want to shout out, first of all, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't shout out to my own bride of 40 years here, that Bev's birthday is at the end of this month on the 30th. And trust us, we've already planned a getaway, so it'll be fun. Garrett, her birthday. Lori, Karen, happy birthday to you last week. Cindy, if you're on, happy birthday. And Pat. So reminder that tonight, by the way, tonight, not today, but tonight at 6 p.m. will be our board meeting. Remember, as we talked about last month, we're changing up some of the schedules here to try to make meetings more accessible to folks that can't make it during the day. So board meeting is tonight. Study group is next Monday, the 16th. I realize the little pointer is pointing to the wrong day of the week. Midge, you want to do a preview for what we're going to be talking about on the study group next Monday?
Sure. We're going to be talking about trees. And as I mentioned in the e-news, it's specifically about landscape trees, small garden trees that people will feel comfortable planting in their own gardens. We're not talking about going out and planting a whole forest or anything like that. But it's the idea is to start small and cultivate your own little arbor in your yard or whatever. So this year it's going to be all about planting trees.
Very good. And a reminder then that that's a great opportunity, and these are always great opportunities for continuing education hours. So Zoom in next Monday, January 16th. And again, of course, it's a shout out to the e-news for all the detail, where all this information is always contained. Okay, quick reminder here is that, I want to turn it over to Alina and Brenda. Do you have any comments regarding our recommitment, and how are we doing in terms of recommitments and getting commitments out there?
Brenda, this is Elena. Brenda can talk about the recommitment. She's been working with people. Are you on, Brenda?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm still working through it. I've got, quite a few of the people through the finish line, but still a few to go. So it's in progress.
Is there any request or action you're asking of us here in terms of helping expedite that along? Is it, for example, if they've received an email from you, they should be responsive, etc.?
Yeah, there's a couple people that I sent recertification emails with the link to Give Pulse back in November, December, and they still haven't gone through it, but I have recontacted those people and asked them to either look for it or I would resend it. So that's a few of them. And then there's just a few other reasons, people still trying to get their hours in and just various things, but it's not too bad.
So again, it's a response, is it get the hours in, right? Go to the study groups, right? Get your continuing hours, right? And if you can knock it off early in the year, so much the better. Okay. Thanks, Brenda. And by the way, thanks, Brenda and Alina, both for your patience and pursuit. I know this is a thankless pursuit, right, of tracking down of the recalcitrant and truant master gardeners.
Thank you.
Okay, January to-dos from OSU. Okay, once again, right, beginning your garden journal, and it, you know, it really is a wise idea. As much as we talk about this, right, you know, to actually write down what's happening. So as we're paying attention to weather conditions, precipitation conditions, temperature conditions, your soil conditions, you know, there's so much of value that we can learn. And this is something we need to remind our public too, is that each year is different. So the opportunity of recording this thing so that we can remember what we did last year as we think about the year ahead. Of course, once a year, we always talk about getting your soil tested, and I know that's kind of a pain in the rear. And you know, I'm the first to admit that we seldom do this as we should, but I'm actually thinking that this year is going to be especially important given the amount of precipitation we've had this winter. I'm expecting to see a lot of nutrients leach out of our garden beds. And so I think this is absolutely very appropriate to think about a stepped up response to testing. And of course, OSU is actually saying, you know, hey, this is an opportunity to think hard about which plants you want to pull up. You know, if you've got some varietals out there that are not doing well, that you don't think are going to hold up well, given climate change and given the issues we're dealing with, let's not be averse to taking them out, or as we would experience, right? Just attack it seriously with the pruner. And speaking of tools, of course, this is the time to think about maintenance and cleanup. Remembering to water here in the wintertime. I remember Don Tapio's, you know, always insisted, right, that this was the very serious time at which we often dry out our outdoor plants. We forget to water plants in the wintertime. And it's often the case that many plants, you know, because of where they're situated, don't get enough water. And so it was a Tapio axiom that I try to remember. Interesting on propagation. OSU makes a big point that this is a great time to take hardwood cuttings and to begin to propagate. And just do a little bit of searching online, and you'll find a couple of they're actually quite dated. This technical notes is from 2002, and this Clark County Master Gardener piece is from 2013. But they're very insightful and instructful documents in terms of how to start with cuttings of particular plants you like and would like to propagate. And this is the time to take an action. So Midge, this would be a fun topic to talk about in an upcoming study group, by the way.
Yeah, it would. Thanks.
Soil testing labs. Remember, both WSU and OSU have flyers out there talking about recommended soil testing labs. And I find that, as I mentioned before, the OSU document I think is far more aimed at the home gardener. WSU seems to have far more of a commercial and large ag emphasis with respect to the sources. But again, all of these are laboratories that are approved by both WSU and OSU. Other January houseplants, of course, this is the time to correct water and fertilizer. Great opportunity to repot and to repair. This is also an interesting time. Remember, based upon where the plant is located for the sunlight as well as for heat. It might be getting too much heat and too much dry air if it's located close to a vent. So it's an interesting time to pay attention to our indoor plants. So other announcements. I want to open up the floor here for announcements and schedules for anything at upcoming events, upcoming news that we want to make sure we're sharing.
I wanted to make a comment on the houseplants, and maybe most of you know this, but I was looking on Amazon and found this little halo of light that is a plug-in, and it has all the proper lights for your plant, and it has a timer on it and an extension, and there's various varieties. Anyway, I bought one for, I don't know, $20 to $30, and my begonia, beefsteak begonia, that just has a terrible time all winter long in my dark house. I just say, hold on, baby, I'll get you back out on the porch soon. It's doing much, much better. And I'm about to order myself a couple more because I have 10-foot porches, front and back, and my house just doesn't get any light in it. So-
okay.
You know, Garnet, if you want to push that out to the on the chat, if you can find that whatever model that is, maybe push that out on the chat. That might be fun to share with everyone.
Okay, let me, they're just, well, actually, there's multiple models. There's some that are like have 4 or 5 little fimbriated things that come out, so you can kind of put them where you want. And I just would recommend going on Amazon and houseplant lights.
Very good. There's a recommendation. Rhonda, you have your hand up.
I do. I don't know who to turn this over to, so I'm going to ask the generic question. You guys give me a quick answer, and then I'll go on from there. We have a number of members that are involved in education at different capacities, so I don't know who's aware of this or not. But I met on Saturday a lady named Nicole LaCroix, I believe is her last name. She is the Grays Harbor College Vice President for Instruction. It was a random run-in meeting with this lady. And one conversation led to another about me being a master gardener. And her first thing she wanted to know is, would master gardeners be willing to teach classes at Grays Harbor College through the adult education program? And she's very interested in talking with whomever is in our education department that would like to take this on and begin conversations with her. So I'm currently, she's working with, I couldn't recall if she said Kitsap County or Whatcom County, the master gardeners. And she has helped them get involved with their local community college in the teaching program. Well, I know we have members that are working with, I believe, Grays Harbor College on the greenhouses. And I know that we have several education directors in our program. But who wants to take this on and would like to meet and talk with Nicole? And is this something that you'd want to bring back to our members to see if they're interested in?
I want to chime in here. From 2016 through 2019, I taught landscaping and gardening workshops at all 3 campuses. And I forget who I worked with because it's been so long ago.
Well, Nicole is brand new there. She's only been there 2 years.
Okay, so she came on after I left. And the reason why I left is basically COVID. But I did a lot of 3-hour workshops on different aspects of gardening. And with regards to the greenhouse, Elizabeth and Shashila and I have been talking with each other, and we had a meeting last week on Wednesday. And so we're moving forward and asking questions not only to the dean, which is Ed Brewster.
Yes.
And also we've been in contact with Kent, who is the facilities manager at the Grays Harbor College in Raymond. So that's where that project is at the moment.
Excellent. Well, she may not be aware totally. I mentioned the greenhouses to her. She was unaware of that part of the program. It sounds like she's beginning to completely revamp the community education program. And those are courses I've taken through the college. And when COVID hit, everything stopped.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, I'd be happy to talk to her because
Perfect.
of my past experience in
You
doing
can give
workshops.
history.
Yeah.
Bev,
can.
I will email you directly then, and I'll pass on all her information to you. She would really, really enjoy speaking with you.
Okay, great.
Great, thank you. That was it for me.
Very good. Anything else? Others? Announcements? What do we need to do to start off the new year right here?
Kelly, did you announce about the WSU forestry bird noontime presentations that
No,
are happening
I did not, but thank you. That's happening this week or this next week?
this week?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is, and that's on that, and I think that I had a slide on that last month. But I think I think the way to search for this, right, is for WSU Forestry. And these are noontime programs, right, Kathleen?
Mhm.
Yes, that's right, for a half hour. And the one yesterday was on owls. It was excellent. And today's on birds of prey. And then there'll be excavators, et cetera, this week.
Most certainly. So the birds of prey one today will be an excellent after message
Mhm.
here from Dan's presentation later this morning.
Yeah, I'll put I can put the link in the chat box. for
That'd be
today.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Other announcements, other news.
Kelly,
Yes, Terry.
I'd just like to say that the Home and Garden Show planning is underway. And maybe Rhonda would like to talk a little bit because she and Robin are doing the heavy lifting right now on vendor solicitation. How's it going, Rhonda?
Pinging Rhonda.
Okay, well, I'm sure it's going great.
You're muted. She's muted, aren't you?
I guess I was muted.
Yeah, you're
Sorry.
muted. There you go.
Sorry. It's going really well. Robin and I are meeting today just after this meeting to go over some more of the details. For the home side, I just want to caution everyone, the home side I'm handling a little bit differently this year. We have some exciting new vendors that are going to participate, and we're really trying to push the home side into more home improvement type of contractors and businesses, and only going to allow fill-in with, I'll call them home decorators, people who make homemade items, probably at the end to fill in if necessary. Getting great response already. People are ready to get back to normal. I think that's probably really all I need to say at this point, other than we're going to be looking for volunteers to help. And as always, this is not a teaching year for us in regards to our interns and trainees. So hopefully we'll have a lot of free flowing movement of bodies and help at this show, because we think it's going to be a great one.
And the dates again, Terry and Rhonda and Robin, are
May 20th and 21st, the weekend after Mother's Day.
there you go. And of course, the Thursday and Friday before the show, right, are going to be important days.
Set up. Yes.
Clear your calendars, everyone, and prepare, because it's a big deal. And by the way, Rhonda, I think it's the first time you've actually attended a meeting live at which we can celebrate the fact that your persistence in working with the Department of Commerce last year led us to an award of over $12,000, right? Of
Yeah, that was crazy.
COVID relief funds. So kudos to you
Yay.
in
Kudos
making that
to all
happen.
of us.
Yeah. Okay.
We
And
all
by the
do
way,
awesome work.
that's a good lead in, by the way. Just a couple of slides as a reminder of who we are as a foundation and how we engage with WSU as a program. So, of course, we are all here today as master gardeners, right? Certified by WSU, and following the precepts of engaging with them for research-based information to share to the public. As a foundation, we are a separate 501c3 Washington corporation. And our mission is indeed to support the Master Gardener program in our 2 counties. And we do that financially through sharing publicly of education and through coming together in meetings like this for engaging our volunteers. And again, as you know, it's significant to note that we are, we're 100% volunteers as an organization. There's also a state foundation, right? So the Master Gardeners of Washington State have a state foundation, which is also a separate corporation whose mission is to fund the Master Gardener program at the state level. And so at their website, a new website for 2023, mind you, can be seen at mastergardenerfoundation.org. So again, I want to make this distinction when we start talking about, the Master Gardener program and the Master Gardener foundations at the county level and at the state level. These are all, they're distinct in terms of who they are and what they do. By the way, at the Master Gardener State Foundation, you actually find a map of all the state counties that allow you to click upon down to the individual county websites. And so, for example, I just did this, and you see this is what you get when you click on the Pacific County website, and you'll actually it'll actually drive you to. You actually can get to our website through the State Foundation website, and there's a quick summary of our program and the foundation. And by the way, it's a good summary. It's a good clarification there, right there in the state website, how our foundation is distinct from the WSU program.
And
Go ahead.
Can I
Yeah.
mention something?
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Yeah, so this is, sorry, I came late to the meeting. You might have mentioned this already, but this is the 50th year anniversary of Washington State Master Gardeners. And I've heard at the State Foundation meetings that different counties are going to be celebrating in different ways. And I wondered, will we have any kind of mention of this, for instance, in a presentation at the Home and Garden Show, or are we going to have a celebration of any kind? Or would you like us to investigate, are we state reps to investigate what other counties are doing at the February meeting and bring it back to this meeting?
Anybody have any comments on this? I know that I don't believe we've actually talked about this before in terms of any 50th anniversary celebration.
The Elma Demo Garden is putting up banners on our kiosk that has the table underneath by the blue building. So we're definitely acknowledging it in the demo garden.
That's great. Yeah, it
I
might,
would,
go
I
ahead.
would love, I'm sorry, I would love for you to come back maybe in February and see if we can put something together and celebrate in an appropriate manner.
Okay, sure. I'll be glad. We'll be glad to. I'll talk with Karen and Sharon too and see what they find out. Yeah, I have an idea about, it's probably far-fetched, but there's a big history to that. A long history to the demo garden, and it would be nice to show how that ties in with 50 years for our master gardeners. Because there's videos and photos of the way things were back in the 30s even. So, and then I'll mention it to Cindy.
Thanks, Kathleen.
I've also asked Mike Carvia if he would order a banner that we can display at the Pacific County Fair so we can acknowledge it that way at our local fair.
Great.
Okay, very good.
And I'm sure at the Home and Garden Show, we'll be featuring it on our electronic screen and putting up posters and banners as well. So there will definitely be a presence and an acknowledgement.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And the good news is most of us are older than the Master Gardener program, so that we can fully celebrate it, right? The Master Gardener program is youthful compared to us. Speaking of youthful activities, we have our 2023 elected board. Here's a reminder, mind you, of everybody's position here. Thank you, Head, for the work that we're all going to be contributing over this next year. A note that we do have an opportunity for a president-elect, so that your name here, right, can go onto that blank spot. Sabine, of course, is prepared to serve for the next 23 years, as she's indicated. But a president,
25.
having somebody in the backup that is always desired. Okay. And then, of course, we have three region groups here, and at Pacific County, North Beach, and Greater Grays Harbor. And at Valerie, are you still interim, or are you official now for that?
We're having a meeting on January 21st, and I'm sure an agenda item, and Midge can confirm, is the election of official directors and co-directors, if that's how we need to go.
Okay. Very good. So that's January 21st coming up.
Yes.
Will you go? Do you expect to go 15 ballots? 15 ballots as the House of Representatives did?
I sure as heck hope not. I'm getting older by the minute.
Okay, thanks much. And then, of course, a shout out to both Alina and Brenda for continuing to persist, and wrangling this house of cats here in making things happen. And then, of course, this is
rainfall in Pacific County.
this is and Sharon, you always need to mute yourself here. That's for sure. I've taken care of it. So with respect to a reminder, of course, let's start the year off right with recording our hours properly. And again, Brenda and Alina are resources there that can certainly help with with getting with getting you on and getting you comfortable with the Give Pulse program. Alina, Brenda, any comments, any changes in the Give Pulse program or the Give Pulse application that we need to be thinking about for this year?
Well, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but when you sign on and there's a little box that comes up that says, look at me in beta view. So I don't know exactly when this is going to happen, but there will be a new view at some point. I don't know when. So we're not looking forward to it.
Gosh, no.
We're not welcoming change. Is that right? Okay.
Right.
Okay, very good. But again, let's do it. I think I'd like to speak for everybody here. Let's just do a better job of getting our hours in when they occur. And if you just keep up with it, right, it won't be such a toil, as we get into the year. Okay. And then just a quick reminder is that one of the things we decided to do for this year, right, is to change up our meeting schedules. So reminder that the first 2 months of each quarter, we're going to have our member meetings in this format at 10 o'clock on the second Tuesday. We will proceed to have meetings on the Saturday of the third month of each quarter. And hopefully we'll actually be able to have some face-to-face meetings as we get into the year. All of these meetings, of course, be announced in e-news, of course, but you can start thinking now about second Tuesdays and second Saturdays. Our board meetings, we wanted to make sure that our board meetings are accessible to all of our foundation members, including those who may not be able to make it during the work week and the work day. So board meetings will always be on that second Tuesday at 6 p.m. And we'll keep them virtual at this juncture and take it from there. So again, I'll see many of you and hopefully all of you, because all of you are welcome this evening at 6 p.m. For our meeting.
This is Elena. Do we have a Zoom link for the board meetings?
It's all in e-news, yes.
Okay. I'm just coming back for vacation, so I'm catching up on stuff.
Everything is always in e-news, right? And by the way, it'll be the same. These are going to be the same links, by the way, going forward for all meetings throughout the year. So if you can
just as a reminder, if we can put the board meetings maybe in the calendar on PMWMG, maybe have someone do that so that if you lose the e-news, you can always go to the calendar.
And Chris, I know that you and I and Vivian have been talking about exactly that.
Yep, that's right.
So,
thank you.
So reminder again of dates coming up, of course, all of our support is needed throughout the year at the demo gardens and our community beds. Recall that we've got some great things happening at the community beds and the demo gardens across the 2 county areas. Home and Garden Show, as we mentioned earlier, May 20th and 21st, and the setup ahead of those dates. And of course, the garden tour will be held in July. So do set aside your time, because as a volunteer organization, we are all about making that happen. So with respect to 2023, recall one of the things that we're talking about here are new emphases that the WSU program is playing into relative to the new training manual that's coming out. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing in these programs here is trying to tie our speaker programs to one or more of these emphasis topics. And we're going to begin 2023 with a connection here to nearby nature. So nearby nature is one of these themes that is now going to be emphasized by the program in our training program. And it, as you can see from it, from the slide here, is that what we are indeed being asked to do as master gardeners is help the public engage outdoors, and it perhaps get away from their televisions and their WAPs and their app screens, and get outside. There's not necessarily a horticultural connection here, but there's actually an emphasis for us to help the public engage in the outdoors. And to that, right, this brings us to our speaker today. So Dan is with us here as the executive director of Coastal Raptors, and the website is right there at coastalraptors.com. Dan's going to speak much more about this, and I've been fascinated in talking with you, Dan, about about your program and about your organization here. And I'm eager to have more shared and to learn more. So with that, I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to allow you, Dan, to share your screen and to kick it off. And you're on mute. Your mute button is down at the very far right of your tab. There you go. There you go.
Okay. So I'll share screen and we'll get underway. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
Okay, we have it.
Okay, can everybody hear me all right?
We're indeed hearing you.
Okay, great. Let me get settled in here. I've got there. All right. So I wanted to start my presentation today by talking about biodiversity and a serious decline, in fact, in biodiversity, not just in the US, but North America and around the globe. A very serious decline that has been documented by scientific investigation and by conservationists in recent years, really, particularly in more recent years, raising their hands about this. And so I'm trying to advance a slide here and not seeming to want to go. I don't, maybe should have tested this out a little bit, but sorry about this. I'm not sure why it won't advance, but
Are you on if you're on PowerPoint, you should be able to hit N for the next slide, P for the previous slide.
Okay. I mean, you can also do it by paging up and down, and it's not working. I don't know why, but
if you just want to go back to your PowerPoint, and not the PowerPoint slideshow.
Let me see.
Do a new share.
I don't even know how to.
Go to share screen and do a new. There you go, right there.
Okay, so let me. All right, here we go. I don't know what. I know what happened. I just a little bit behind this morning. I'm sorry for running late. I was on the last slide and I was trying to advance it, and it wouldn't advance. So I think we'll be fine now. But what I was going to share next was a report that came out called The State of the Birds. And this is the 9th such report, came out in April of last year, describing the serious decline in bird populations across North America. And this report is published by the North American Conservation Initiative. And it's a forum of 33 government agencies and science and conservation organizations. Including Audubon, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Ducks Unlimited, and many others. And you can find this online very easily by just typing in State of the Birds if you want to get your own copy. And at a glance, this is what the findings show. 3 billion birds lost. 1 in 4 breeding birds have been lost from the United States and Canada in the past 50 years. And they identify 70 tipping point species in the United States. That is, those are species that have collectively lost 2/3 of their populations in the last 50 years and are on track to lose another 50% in the next 50 years. So identify downward trends across the board here in every habitat except wetlands. The report shows a graph here that summarizes the issue. So if you look on the y-axis, you see percent change, and on the x, the years from 1970 on. So that's when the period in which this data was evaluated. And you can see geese and swan numbers, the dramatic increases, ducks as well, other water birds. But when it comes to western forest birds, arid land birds, eastern forest birds, sea ducks, shorebirds, grassland birds, the story is definitely not the same. And then I mentioned the tipping point species earlier, and those are down 67%. None of those species, by the way, are on the endangered species list. So it's not just birds, but insects as well. This is a publication that came out recently. It's published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. Insect decline in the Anthropocene, death by 1,000 cuts. So the Anthropocene is just a way that many are describing the current era that we are in here in the world, where human caused the influence of humans on the biodiversity and the ecology of our world. It's many are calling it now the Anthropocene period. And so death by 1,000 cuts means that there are many ways that these insects are being affected by human activity. And there's a really nice summary figure in this article that I want to share with you now. Let me see, where is it? Here it is. So I'll just give you a second to look at this. So I think it's a nice overview that not only could apply to insects, but to the birds I started my presentation on, and whether it be global warming or fire or storm intensity, which is really in the news in the last day or so down in California, droughts, deforestation, pollution, all of these things together have caused a dramatic decrease in our insect populations, which, as we all know, are critical to the human species for pollination and agriculture and everything else, which ties in very well to you master gardeners. And one might wonder then, what is it that you can do? I'll just pause for a minute as master gardeners to help address this issue. So I'll just open it up to a little discussion for a minute here.
And again, go ahead and unmute yourselves and offer some thoughts here, because obviously some of the key things that we're talking about here is that we've hit upon before in other earlier topics, the need for pollinators, the importance of pollination, in terms of all of the foodstuffs that we eat here. And so that, growing more plants in the landscape that are attractive to our native pollinators, right, is a key theme that we've been on for a long time.
Oh, good.
Also, being not so aggressive with getting rid of bugs. killing bugs.
Insecticides. Yeah, try to minimize insecticides as much as possible, and also herbicides. This doesn't, one place this really applies strongly is down in Florida. I bring this up because I got in the most recent issue of Audubon magazine, there's a story about the manatees down there, which they are a marine mammal, sometimes called sea cows. And their numbers, they're dying by the thousands down there as a result of polluted water that is killing off the vegetation that they eat. They're totally herbivores. And one of the main culprits to that is herbicide use, which causes, throws off the dynamic of the ecology of the water system and causes the plant life to die that they depend on.
One small thing we can do as master gardeners, and it's just a drop in the bucket, but is to be aware of pruning in the spring and nesting birds and squirrels. And, I'm shocked. I volunteer with a wildlife rehab group here on the peninsula, and we get in so many nesting birds and little nests of squirrels and such in the springtime when people are pruning.
I see. Well, maybe just a drop in the bucket, but the cumulative effect of everyone doing what they can really adds up to a lot.
I tend to leave a lot of dead wood around in my garden area. I use it for kind of edging, and I just let it rot, which I think is really beneficial to insects and birds. And I do most of my garden cleanup in the spring rather than in the winter when birds need to kind of rummage around in dead leaves and insects hiding in it. So I think that helps. And I also plant for winter blooms. I have the winter blooming Mahonias, probably a dozen of them surrounding my house. And I've got year-round hummingbirds that take advantage of that habitat and that food.
Good. Yeah, that's all good advice. And leaving the leaves on the ground in the gardens and things also helps to retain soil moisture, which is very important as well.
Other thoughts, other comments?
Following up on the leaving the leaves, I also am leaving the dead stems of perennials up because there are bugs that are either hibernating or have laid their eggs in there. And so I wait until spring, cut those down. And besides that, it's an easy way to garden. So easier on me.
Yeah, well, it gives those birds that forage on those insects something to eat as well, and also gives them cover from predators. I tell my wife that.
Right. Well, and the other thing is I am experimenting with doing the lawns that have clover and daisies and small bulbs. So instead of having a big just expanse of grass, I have things to feed the insects.
Good.
What about bird feeders and types of bird feeders that don't attract bears and other environments?
Like rats.
Rats,
Yeah.
raccoons, black bears, so forth, deer.
Yep.
Well, and we can also provide or make sure we provide a consistent clean water source for birds and insects as well.
Yeah, and if you do that, that certainly brings them in as well, gives you more opportunities to view. So win-win situation. All right, well, I think there's anyone else want to share a thought before we move on to the next part of my program? Okay, so I'm going to now move on and go to the Coastal Raptors website, which I'm real proud of, which will allow you to learn more about the organization, what we do. And I've got a lot of stuff up here. Should have cleared this out. And don't hit that. So okay, so this is coastalraptors.com, and it's newly emerged. We started their website in 2005, and the webmaster was Mark Schultz, who was the webmaster for Washington State Parks, and he managed the site for many years. And then we had some problems, and we had to do something different. And a new person, Dale Larson from Hoquiam, stepped in, and we now have a website through WordPress. And Dale does work in the background, and I add the content. And we've got really a lot to share here. And so I'll just kind of walk you through a few things here, and start with just check this out real quick about us, which is a little bit about the organization. We are also a 501c3. The goals are to conduct scientific research and monitoring on raptors along coastlines, to provide education programs, to train wildlife biologists, and to collaborate with experts in wildlife research and management. And, the organization started in 2009, and I was the wildlife biologist for Rayonier Timber. I got the job moving from Iowa, where I got my PhD, in 1993. And as I worked for the timber company, I worked for Rayonier Timber, and I started doing raptor surveys on the side, mostly on weekends, a little bit before work in the early morning hours. And I did that for a number of years until 2009, when I lost the job due to the Great Recession we had then. And at that point, I started the nonprofit Coastal Raptors, and did a little consulting for a few years after, as the organization was getting underway. But in more recent years, I just focus all my attention and time on Coastal Raptors. So the organization. And so you can learn about the board. There's a blog here I'm going to share a little bit with you in a minute, and then how to contact or how to donate. And so here under the contact page, if you want to locate me, if you want to get a hold of me by mail, email, or phone, my contact information is here. And
It looks like Dan's frozen a little bit here.
Is
looks-
Connie on our meeting today, Connie Mernon?
Yes, she is. She's on mute. Yes.
Connie's husband is very active with coastal raptors, and she probably has a lot of tales she could tell us if Dan continues to be frozen for a little while. Hi, Connie. Sorry to
Hi.
put you on the spot, but
Well, I've never actually gone out on a bird run with them, but Dave goes quite often, loves it. He isn't here, he's on jury duty today. So he would have been excellent to fill in for Dan until Dan gets back. But so I don't really can't say too much about it.
Eva, you've had some engagement quite a bit with Dan, right?
Yes, I've been fortunate to get to go on some of his bird counts and banding expeditions here on the Long Beach Peninsula. I'm very fortunate.
One of the things that Dan wants to emphasize is that what we can do as master gardeners in terms of working with the public, and it, and regarding raptors, he definitely wants to make sure that if any of us see a banded bird, right, a banded bird, that is reported. And similarly with any dead raptors, any dead raptors that you see out there, he's interested in having those reported as well. And it's interesting. He wants to make the increased emphasis that, if you see a dead raptor out there, it's just kind of like a crime scene. Don't move it, don't touch it, don't disturb it. The idea is to report it, try to protect it, take pictures if you can, right? If indeed there's going to be if indeed you suspect that the site's going to be disturbed. And this is probably Dan on the phone here, so I'm going to go on mute here.
And it's really quite fun if you find a banded bird, because you can if you can get a photograph of the band, you can send that in and they'll send you back some information on that and a little certificate. So it's been sort of fun. I've gotten a few of those over the course of the years.
Yeah. One of the things about raptors that's always kind of confused me is, if you did notice, I think, that there was a turkey vulture in his photographs of all of the raptors, and we know that they don't rap. They don't go out and kill other birds. They eat dead birds and dead other things like deer and so on. But I would like to ask him that question. It probably has something to do with the shape of their beaks rather than how they actually feed. But Terry, you've had a run-in with one of those guys, haven't you? Or what did you have a run-in with on your beach several years ago?
I don't remember a run-in. We often get eagles out there feeding on something that they've either caught or has washed up. I've tried experiments hanging dead trout on the beach to see if they would feed on those, and they don't seem to want to eat anything that I put out there, thinking that they might find it interesting. But turkey vultures were actually one of our sons' favorite birds. He loves turkey vultures, even as a small kid. And the other thing that we always did on any drives between the coast and wherever we were going, we count hawks, and now I do it with the grandkids. I just think it's really, really good for encouraging children to look and watch and appreciate how wonderful it is to see wild animals, especially wild birds.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm glad you're raising your grandchildren in the right way. But what I was thinking was, you tried to help a bird that was in trouble at one point on your beach.
Oh, okay. That was a shorebird. That was a shorebird, not a shorebird. Yes, I rescued off our bank what are those seabirds with the long necks? A cormorant.
Okay.
Yeah, it crashed into the roof on our house, and I heard it, and then I went out to see, and sure enough, it was halfway down the steep bank in front of our house that was full of ivy. And So somehow I managed to walk up to it and it was stunned, so it didn't struggle. But this was quite a few years ago. I didn't have a cell phone with me, but I did have a towel. So I wrapped it in a towel and managed to get off the bank with it. And then it woke up. And so somewhere there's a bloody photo of my face from this cormorant, because I refused to drop it. But anyway, I got to the bottom of the trail and realized that I wouldn't know what to do with it if I took it up to the house. So I took it to the beach and it flew away. So happy ending.
So a few scars later,
Yeah.
but you did the right thing.
Yeah.
Do
it
any of
was-
you know where do the turkey vultures go in the wintertime? Because I do have an unbelievable view of them the rest of the year, where they'll soar in the heat currents right in front of my windows between my house and the trees. And they're stunning to watch. We get up close with them all the time, but they totally disappear in the wintertime.
They do. They fly south into
They do. Okay.
Mexico and Central America.
Okay.
And they actually stage. Watch them more carefully. See where they're accumulating before you notice that they're gone. But they will leave in a big bunch. In the eastern part of the states, wherever there are power poles, or that they will actually land on those, and you'll see maybe 15, 20 different turkey vultures all together. And then one day they just take to the air and head south.
They're gone.
Yeah.
They're cool. They're very
Not
cool.
so much in the spring when they migrate back, they're more solitary. But one of the stories that I used to hear that I thought was fascinating, but is wrong, is that hummingbirds, being so tiny compared to a turkey vulture, is that they would hitchhike rides coming north in the spring. That they would just get on the back of the turkey vulture and sit there and let the turkey vulture bring them back to us in the north. Nice story, but not true.
I think I have a pregnant hummingbird right now at my feeder.
Really?
Yeah, it seems early because I always think that the nesting season is usually February, but this one definitely looks chunky.
We have a couple that look that way also, Terry. I'm going to go get my cattails here in the next few weeks and get those put out by the feeders, because they definitely like the cattails.
That's a good tip.
Okay.
It looks like Dan is back with us. That's
I'm sorry about that. What happened? This is one of those Murphy's Law days for me. I'm sorry, but I'm usually better than this. But I thought the lighting would be better, so I moved my laptop over to my standing desk, and turned out it was worse. Now I'm back where I was originally, and not only that, but I didn't get the computer. I plugged it in, but it wasn't plugged in tight, and so the battery went down. I had it wasn't plugged in properly, and the battery just suddenly went dead. So I was just sharing a little bit about the website here. If you go to contact us, there's my contact information. There's a research page describing the various types of research that we're involved with Coastal Raptors. I'm the executive director. There's only one person besides me that actually is there's only one person that's actually taking any income from it, and it's not me, and that's a database consultant out of Ocean Shores that does a wonderful job keeping track of the numbers. Her name's Virginia Molinar, and just a great person, a great resource. So I raise enough money, about $15,000 a year, to run the organization, to cover mileage costs, cost to analyze, ship samples that we take from the birds we trap to labs for analysis, and various permit costs and everything that comes up that we do. And so just to most of the effort in the field has gone to surveying banding, and I'll just briefly show you this. We drive the beaches by four-wheel drive vehicle. There's usually just one, but sometimes two. And we do our work on 3 beaches: the Ocean Shores, which is only 20 minutes from my house. I live right here on the north side of Grays Harbor. So this beach, which is about 12, 13 miles long. We also do the Grayland Beach and surveys on occasion. That's about 7 miles. And then the Long Beach Peninsula, just under 25 miles long. I do that about once a month. And we document the occurrence of the raptors out there. And we record their location, their species, their age and behavior, the habitat they're in. And we see a variety of different kinds. And we stop and make an effort to catch the peregrine falcons and band them with visual identification bands, as well as another large falcon called the gyrfalcon, which we occasionally see. Sometimes we catch a bald eagle in this trapping process. And so this thing kind of, if you want to look at this later, it goes into a little more detail on what I'm describing here. I'll just briefly say, in addition to doing the driving surveys, we trap avian scavengers from a fixed position. And we use a net launcher or a bow net to trap bald eagles, turkey vultures, and ravens on the beaches in order to sample them for contaminants and disease pathogens. And that project also involves some work on the Oregon coast. And so there's a little bit about that there. And we have a turkey vulture tracking project where we've put wing tags on turkey vultures. There's a lot to read and learn about here. Since 2012, and one of our tagged birds was sighted down in Mexico by a biologist doing helping out with a study on bat pollination and bats and their pollination behavior with flowers down there. And he sent a picture, and we got this through the Federal Bird Banding Lab, and we were so excited about the find that we put a sombrero on through Photoshop, the magic of Photoshop, on this bird. So we put roughly 60 wing tags on turkey vultures since 2012, and then more since 2012, and then in more recent years, starting in 2018, we started keeping track of them through satellite tagging, in addition to putting the wing tags on. And as a result of that activity, we've seen that many of these birds migrate to Mexico, which is really interesting. That yellow arrow shows you there where Mexico City is in relation to where these birds winter. There's a lot to learn, a lot to see there. One of the interesting, although somewhat sad finding, is one of our birds, this one we call Artful Dodger, was found dead at a cactus farm, died, and we had a biologist from Mexico that was, we knew through some collaborations, to go look for the bird, and he recovered the transmitter and the wing tag, but not the bird, but we got some good information there. And so there's a lot there to learn about education. I do programs. I do about 10, 12 programs a year, about one a month, such as this. We've got publications, scientific, well, the other part of the education program, other elements of it, in addition to giving presentations, are involve having people in the field. And I've had over 500 people in the field over the years. Eva is gone on a number of these already down at Long Beach, and she's the one that recommended I speak to the group today. So I appreciate that invitation and opportunity. So
And Dan, we've learned that Connie Murren's husband, Dave Murren, is an active birder with you. Yes.
That's an understatement. Yeah, he really is. He's been involved for about 15 years. We're good friends, and he brings a lot of skills to the table. I call him sometimes my gadget guy because he can fix anything and helps.
So Dan, just an aside, so why the wing tags on the turkey vultures and the other band, the traditional leg bands on the other raptors?
Okay, that's because turkey vultures have this habit of pooping on their legs, and that if we put a band on the leg, that poop would get caught between the leg and the band and cause irritation and potentially worse, the skin broken and infection and things like that. They do that as a way to keep cool, and many turkey vultures are found in warm environments, and also as a way to, it's believed as a way to kill bacteria. Their stomach and their stomach is very acidic, and that's the way they survive, feeding on dead things. And so it's believed that helps kill bacteria, which get on their legs from perching on prey and things on what they feed on. It's not really prey, they're carrion eaters, of course. So that's why it's required by the Federal Bird Banning Lab that we use wing tags and not bands. So, and then there's publications here. I've got 6 scientific publications from the research so far over the years, a long-term data sets we labored over for a long time to put them in the peer-reviewed literature. And then we also have the newsletters that have been coming out ever since we starting actually in 2010. I haven't posted this year, the 2022 one yet, but I'm going to do that very shortly. And so we have that. And then we have a section here, which I'm going to share briefly with you, called The Birds, which really kind of underscores what those birds are that people see, that we see and that others will see if they go out on the coastal beaches. And of course, our one of the main emphasis of coastal raptors is peregrine falcons. We've banded well over 200 since we started the surveys in 1995. And this is a wonderful photo by Nick Dunlop of peregrine falcon chasing a dunlin at Ocean Shores. So paging down here, this again shows the map of where we do the work. And then 97% of the birds we see on the beach, raptors, are comprised of 4 species: the bald eagle, peregrine falcon, northern harrier, and merlin, with the bald eagle making up 59% of the total. This is based on the relative frequency within which we encounter them during what we call our protocol survey. So 59% bald eagles, 21% peregrine falcons, and a little bit there I share. And then northern harriers make up about 10%. They hunt over the dune grasses, and merlins make up 7%. This is smaller falcon than the peregrine falcon. And the balance, that remaining 3%, is made up of turkey vultures, osprey, snowy owl, gyrfalcon, rough-legged hawk. And I've got some pictures of those birds here as well. And then there's a lot more we could share here, but we also highlighted the wonderful shorebirds. Of course, the coastal beaches are a wonderful migration corridor for shorebirds, and it's no accident that the falcons are there as a result, and various kinds of shorebirds. So I addressed that with some photos here. So so that gives you
So
about that.
So I'm curious with respect to the peregrine falcons, is there a particular, is it Dunlin or Sandpiper, or with respect to all the shorebirds out there, does the peregrine falcon have a particular preference for prey?
Well, they tend to, what they feed on most often are the shorebirds, and the ones they feed on most often are the shorebirds. Most often are the ones that are most abundant, and that would be primarily the Dunlin. But they'll feed on a variety of types, not just shorebirds, but we've seen them take birds as large as, mallard ducks and things. And so it's quite a range of prey that they will feed on. But Dunlins are among the top, really probably the top shorebird, and sanderlings are relatively common, of course, as well as migrants and winter residents. And so, and just paging down here a little bit, one of the surprising things that we found through the years is that the peregrine falcons will scavenge. Here's a banded peregrine falcon on the Long Beach Peninsula feeding on a dead brown pelican. They can't pluck these out of the air, but we found scavenging to be relatively common occurrence, and we actually published a scientific paper on it. It's under publications there in the on the website. So any of the publications we've got, you can download if you go to the publication page. So and then here I've got stories and video. Here there's the website, new website is still relatively new. And so there are not too many here, but I've got 4 here. I had a trail camera up north of where I live, about 300 yards on a vacant lot, and I had a deer carcass out, and there's a very interesting video of all the different scavengers that came in. The trail camera was set to take short videos of like 10 seconds each, and I strung a bunch of them together, and there's a fun program there. And then there's some others here, and I plan to add to these later with time. And last but not least is Birdman Dan's blog, and I'm having some fun with that. And there's about 6 or 8 of those here so far, and I'm working on one now. It's not actually, normally it's still in a draft form where you can't see it, but I took it off draft form to share with you today because it illustrates how people can help coastal raptors. So we put a transmitter on a turkey vulture at the airport at Ocean Shores. See, I just posted this today. And it has not only it has both a wing tag and a transmitter, and we put this transmitter and tag on August 4, and here's a short video that shows the release of that bird. I was helped that day by Jake Burrows and Sandra Miller, who's longtime volunteers for Coastal Raptors, and we let the bird go, and this map shows the Ocean Shores Peninsula, and again, the bird was trapped down at the airport, and this was a release point very close to the trapping point. And first couple of days, August 5th and 6th, the data points were all in this area here, less than a mile. And then on the 6th of October, a movement stopped, and the bird was in a vacant lot here in a neighborhood at Ocean Shores on August 6th. And we couldn't, we went and we did a ground check for it. There's a lot of tall conifers in this vacant lot. And we had a friend, Nick Dunlop, the guy that took that photo that you saw, the peregrine chasing the Dunlin. He was here for his photography. He comes every November for a couple of weeks, and he was here and put a drone up over the top, and we couldn't find it. We couldn't figure out why, because we thought the bird was dead, and the bright red wing tags would certainly show up from you know, even if it was hung up on a branch, but we could not find it. And so we searched and searched, and lo and behold, on August 6th, a guy by the name of David Nadelin photographed our bird soaring over, this is called the Oyhut Wildlife Recreation Area at the south end of the Ocean Shores Peninsula, soaring over him. And he's a wonderful photographer, and he got this great picture, which I have, you can see it much better here at the top of this, of our bird. And the bird banding lab did not let me know about his sighting. He turned in his sighting to the bird banding lab, and I only got it just a matter of days ago. And I quickly got on the phone with him, and he sent me these pictures and told me the story. The bird was flying well, and we were able to match up the signals that we were getting from the transmitter along, which was here, and his photo, which was taken at like 11:15 in the morning on the 6th. And these signals were were coming at a time when, you know, earlier in the day, and we were able to discern that the transmitter was no longer on the bird because the signals were coming in here and the bird was over here when he took the picture. So that was a great piece of information for us, and is just an example of how people can help coastal raptors by reporting their observations, which brings me to the homepage and our wonderful music video, which I'm going to play. And then at the end of that, I'll ask for questions and comments. So this is Band on the Bird by Tony Starlight and Dan Varlin.
This is my friend and raptor buddy, Tony Starlight. He's got a special song that's Band on the Bird. Take it away, Tony.
Where the birds exploded with a mighty flash as they flew up from the sand. And the first one said to the second one there, did you see that band? Band on the bird. Band on the bird. Raptor Dan and the singer man are teaching everyone. See the band on the bird. Band on the bird. Band on the bird. Band on the bird. Well, we drove up closer and the flock dispersed. As the cameras start to click, we scanned the flock looking for the band so that we could take a pic. Band on the bird. Band on the bird. See the band, know the plan. It's good for everyone. See the band on the bird. Band on the bird. Band on the bird. Band on the bird. Well, we took our pictures and we made them big to see what we could find. We got the numbers and we passed them on to the birding band online. Band on the bird. Band on the bird. See the band, know the plan. We'll search forevermore for the band on the bird. 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 Band on the
Much fun. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, he's going to go. There's just a little bit more here, and then we'll be done. So Okay, so hope you enjoyed that. Did you hear it okay?
It came through.
All right, good. So, yeah,
So the key thing I think for us is that where do where do we report those sightings, right, when we see those?
yeah, you can report them to the bird banding lab, and all you have to do is type in bird band into your search engine, and you'll see that's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife bird banding lab, and you can report them online there, or you can send them directly to me. Many of my reports come direct, and all you have to do is go to the Coastal Raptors website and contact us. And there, I described that. I think I have a link to the Bird Banding Lab website as well there. So that's what you would want to do. So yeah, and
so other questions for Dan, comments for Dan. This is important work. And Dan, the first question I wanted to raise is, how healthy do you think is our ecosystem for the raptors that you're looking at when you think about the the beaches here that you patrol?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think overall they're in pretty good shape. We've sampled birds for pathogens like avian influenza and others like adenovirus and things, and for contaminants like mercury and lead, and overall the picture looks pretty good. I should mention though that these days we have a serious problem across North America and actually back in Europe and Asia with highly pathogenic avian influenza that's killing lots of waterfowl. I just finished telling you that they're on the upswing, and that's a good thing. But many are dying because of highly pathogenic avian influenza, and then the carcasses get scavenged by eagles, peregrine falcons, and other raptors, and die as a result. So that's a concern. We had an outbreak in 2015. In fact, in late 2014, December 2014, one of our peregrines died for it at the wastewater treatment plant at Ocean Shores from it. That was the only one that we're aware of, but by and large, I think it's a pretty positive outlook. We published a paper on mercury contamination in peregrine falcon feathers, and we found high levels of contamination relative to other research around the world, the US and beyond. But we don't have any evidence that it actually impacted the birds as individuals or at the population level. We think it's below the threshold at which it would cause deleterious effects. We actually did, that publication is on the website, and so is a survival estimate of peregrines that we did based on 18 years of surveys and banding, and it shows overall survival rates pretty good compared to other studies. So there are some concerns, and we have found a few birds with high levels of lead, but not many. So I think overall it looks pretty good, but there are risks. This avian influenza, as I mentioned, oil spills, power lines. The most common cause of death in the peregrine falcons over the years has been collision with stationary object, flying into wires, fence lines, things like that.
And so if we want to learn more and stay in touch, I mean, so is there a newsletter or just go onto the contact us page, or how do you want to?
I mean, yeah, all the newsletters are here. Let me show you this. Okay, so I've got something funny to lead off on this page here that it's going to look a little odd, but I'll explain. Let me bring it down a little bit. Pub crawl. So dictionary.com defines pub crawl as to have drinks at one bar or another after another. Okay, that's actually me in my fraternity days, my fraternity brothers. I'm in the blue plaid in that shirt there. But these days, for me and others that want to publish in the peer-reviewed literature, it's the slow, laborious process of publishing your work in the scientific literature where you've got peer review. So that's kind of what's going on there with that picture. But here I've got the publications. Here's one on surveys and banding, one on mercury contamination and peregrines, survival rates. We actually did 2 papers on that, one in 2008, and then with like 8 years of data, and then many, many more years of data in 2020. And then the scavenging paper I talked about, the tundra peregrine falcon in Washington, it's one of 3 subspecies. And then we do have a paper on the avian scavenger monitoring, looking at lead and mercury in ravens and eagles, both on the Washington and Oregon coast. And I'm one of the experts on marking techniques, and I do workshops, and I've co-authored a chapter in a book on it. So that's there. And then these are the newsletters, and there's a lot of great newsletters. I've got little overview material, just, brief descriptions of what's in each newsletter. And, if you'd like to be on the list for, send me an email, dan.varland@comcast.net is one. And then I've got a Coastal Raptors one as well. And I can put you on the list. So I send out about 150 hard copies a year with a pledge card. And, I make it clear it's a fundraising mechanism, and I send out roughly 20 or 30 electronic copies. But I think in my experience, more people are more inclined to donate when they have a hard copy. And the newsletter is called Tidings, comes out in December each year, and it chronicles what we've done over the year before. So,
other questions, comments for Dan here?
I just have a statement or a comment. It's probably been 20 years that Dave's been with you, Dan. And as a note to the Master Gardeners, Diana Moore is who, one of our Master Gardeners, is who Dave met Dan through. He went to her house to help her with a problem, and she had a huge peregrine falcon on the wall, a cutout type thing, and he went nuts. And so she said, would you like me to introduce you to Dan Varland? And absolutely, and it all started then. But Dave retired at the end of May, and 3 days later, he and Dan went to Norway for 2 weeks. So you could say something about that, Dan.
Oh, sure. So let's go back up here. Yeah. So we'll go to the blog, and I have a post on that. That was a great adventure. And so that's a gyrfalcon. It's the world's largest falcon of about 18 species worldwide, and they nest up in the Arctic and subarctic zones around the world. And so through my connections, I'm a very active member of the Raptor Research Foundation, which is a scientific society that's mission is to focus on research and education programs that lead to conservation of birds of prey, which by no accident is the mission of Coastal Raptors. No accident. Anyway, so I got an offer to go join Kenneth Johansson and others on a gyrfalcon nesting monitoring project that he and others have had going for like 35 years. And I thought it was a great opportunity. I told Dave about it, and he loves gyrfalcons. So I said, well, can I go? He said, can I go? And I said, well, I'll check into it. And Kenneth a great guy, and he said, well, sure, bring him along. And so the two of us went on this great adventure. We spent a few days in Iceland first, and then birding, and there's some Atlantic puffins in Iceland, and another bird species here from Iceland, the black-legged kittiwake, and then on to Alter, Norway we went, which is 250 miles north of the Arctic Circle. And that's well within the range of the gyrfalcon, which is shown in that map there. And so we got there, we met up with the two leaders of this program, Kenneth Johansson and RV Ostagen. And RV, they started this as teenagers, this hiking out to the gyrfalcon nest and banding the young. And now they're like, in their 50s. So they've been doing this for 35 years. And RV was not able to go with us on the surveys that we did over a little over a week's time. But Kenneth was there. There's Kenneth and I, along with some other team members. So here's Dave and I with these two, and taking the picture with was Kenneth's girlfriend, Marianne. And then, so we did planning, mapped out where we were going to go the next day. We drove out 1 to 2 hours, and then we hiked up to 7 miles one way to get to where these remote sites were, where we did the banding. And then we had a climber that were held down and put the bands on. In Europe, they call them rings rather than bands, on these birds. So here, Dave and I are at one of these sites with these young gyrfalcons that in this particular nest, I think there were 4, and this is a good age to put the bands on because the legs are about as large diameter as they're going to get, and they're not so old that they may jump from the nest when someone enters to grab the birds for the banding. We did take blood samples, just 1 drop of blood on a piece of filter paper that will be analyzed for disease pathogens, which are a big concern with regard to gyrfalcons, because they, with global warming, climate change, there's a potential that they will get exposed to pathogens that they have not been exposed to in the past, given their history of being birds of the far north. Most of them don't come down for the winter, although some do, and we've banded 8 of them over the years, and Dave's been involved in at least half of those. And so this kind of was the last set of pictures. This is Kenneth and his son, who went with us several times, and he'll be part of the next generation of this. So Dave, it was really fun to have Dave along. The longest hike was 14 miles round trip, and somehow I managed to lose my wallet. And so I had no credit card. Luckily, I only had $100 in it and no debit card. And Dave loaned me, I only needed about $100 because we were staying at Kenneth's house, and he was not only lodging us, but feeding us too. And turns out when we got back, Dave actually owed me $100, so we were even.
Great stories.
Yeah.
Any final questions or comments for Dan? This is great info, Dan, and it's obviously we are truly blessed to have you in our community, right? To have your expertise and your team working right here in the community. So what a great opportunity for all of us then as Master Gardeners in dealing with the public to make sure that we're pointing people to you and to your organization.
One thing as a Master Gardener in South Dakota that we spent a lot of time with one of the raptor groups there in just letting people know how important raptors are to farmers and gardeners, because they really keep those rodent populations down. And so the farmers, I know, would always be very happy if they had tree snags with raptors in them or some owls in an old barn or something, because they knew how important those raptors were to keeping the rodent population down.
And we certainly see that in the wine country and the orchard country, in which, you see the ag and the orchardist putting up raptor stands, right? So perching stands, encouraging raptors to hang around.
That's a good thing. And not everywhere in the world is there such respect and protection for raptors as we have in the US and Canada. So that's a a wonderful thing, and hopefully with time it will spread to some of those areas where they're at risk. If you want to read, there's a wonderful book. I'm going to share this with you on bird migration. Let me see. It's at the bottom of this. And this is about another type of tracking here. I've got a antenna on the ridge on my property that picks up signals. So that's where I live. I won't belabor this too long, of small birds that have tiny transmitters that can't take the large transmitters that we put on turkey vultures. And they're all over the country. And I happen to have one, as I say, and around the world, and enable a tracking of birds as small as this western sandpiper here. And anyway, so there, if you want to read a little more about that, you can. That's setting up the station on our property, and there's Grays Harbor National Wildlife Refuge. So we look out on that from where we live. And one of the birds detected at our station was detected at here, was then detected here on Haida Gwaii, and then here in Alaska. So very interesting. But and then here I talk a little bit about transmitters on birds as well. But this is the book, A World on the Wing. It's a marvelous book. It's a New York Times bestseller on bird migration. And it's just like a year old, and it's very up to date. If you're interested in the subject, I highly recommend it.
You know, and this again speaks to the importance of the habitat we provide here along the coast, because we're right on the flyway, right, for the Northwest. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say that people can come and see the migration of the shorebirds. First weekend in May will be our annual festival, and Dan will be one of our speakers there. Thank you, Dan.
I didn't know.
Always this.
I'm happy to do that. I don't think anybody's invited me yet, but so far I'm
Consider yourself invited.
And now it gets recorded for posterity, that's for sure. Dan, I want to thank you so much for participating here today. It's super information, and obviously it's a super valuable, service you're providing to the not just to our local community, but obviously the international community in terms of the respect for these birds here. So I think again, tying back to the nearby nature theme, that we're talking about here. There's so much to be learned, and there's so much that we as master gardeners, right, can relate to relative to your work. So again, thank you, Dan.
I'm glad to be here, and I really enjoyed it. And sorry for the little flubs, but I think it all came through pretty good in the end. So
yeah. Thanks so much.
All right, sure. So I'm gonna take off. I've got another meeting, a little workshop I got to attend in 15 minutes. So
very good, Dan. We thank you much, and and I think at this point we're pretty well closed up. Reminder again of our board meeting this evening at 6 p.m. If there's any questions about the URL, it's in e-news, and we will see you then. Lots to be talking about, because some of the things that we definitely have to talk about budget, and we also have to talk about logo design that Terry Small has contributed. Jude, you have your hand up.
I have got to ask Terry what she was seeing outside her window, because a couple of times she got up and left us just to see what was flying out there.
Well, it's not flying. It's an eagle up there that's perched in the tree. So I kept trying to see whether it was banded or not.
Oh.
But its legs aren't positioned such where I can get a very, very good idea, because he's kind of sitting on them.
Oh, great. Good to see an eagle.
Yeah, well, actually he was up there, he or she was up there with a pair earlier. When we first started the meeting, there were two of them. And then one flew off probably to eat, or they've been working on a nest that in a location where we've been watching this nest for probably the last 5 or 6 years. That's to the west of us on the other side of the big wetland. So another grandkid activity I do a lot when they're here is we hike over underneath this tree and they look for bones. So they have quite a collection of bones, a lot of smaller bird skulls and other type of and skulls that are small rodents probably. So it's pretty interesting.
Can I make a very quick plug for Peninsula Wild Care? That would be the Wildlife Rehab Center here on our peninsula. It's small but growing. Riva, the lady who runs it, is wonderful. You can bring shorebirds, you can bring yard birds, you can bring small mammals. She also takes raptors. She can take them temporarily and then they get transported to a bigger raptor center, I think in Olympia. So that's a really important thing that we have here available to us on the peninsula in case you come into injured wildlife.
Thanks, Eva.
Mhm.
And this in the final slide I want to show, by the way, is a little preview, a little teaser for this evening. And again, a shout out to Terry, since we were just celebrating, her sightings of the eagles here, is that Terry has graciously contributed her artistic talent to 4 potential designs that we propose to adopt. One of these is a logo that we might be able to use in our presentations going forward, on our website, etc. So things that would distinguish our foundation from the Master Gardener program. So again, this is a little bit of a teaser for tonight. We'll be looking at these 4 options, and we plan to be selecting one of the 4.
It's basically one logo with 4 color treatments is what it is. They're not different logos per se.
So does that mean we're gonna have to buy new hats and vests, coats?
Well, John, you got a white T-shirt there. It looks like you're begging for some color there. Yeah.
This doesn't replace the Master Gardener program logos. This is our own foundation logo. So it has a different message and a different purpose.
I'm just recovering from eye surgery, so that's why I'm in T-shirt, and one end's gone out of my glasses.
No worries. Okay, folks, we'll see you all tonight at 6 o'clock. Those of you who wish to join us at the board, I want to thank you all for your participation this morning. And as always, this presentation will be recorded, and I'll have it posted up on YouTube later this afternoon.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
See you